Outside Xiaomi fans, I think regular phone buyers should start taking Xiaomi seriously. Time and time again, they release phones that are actually worth your money. While we can't deny the inevitable price hike of phones every year, we also can't deny the fact that Xiaomi still undercuts veteran companies like Samsung and Huawei in almost every category. Notice how I left out Oppo and Vivo in the mix? That's because they are too expensive for people who are just looking for the best value out of their money. Because despite the Redmi Note 13 Pro Plus asking price, I think it's still worth it. So, if we're going to go by the spec sheet, the 13 Pro Plus looks like similar to last year's 12 Pro Plus. You get the same 120-watt fast charging, the same 5000 mAh cell, and the same stereo speakers but without the headphone jack, unfortunately, but the same 200 megapixel resolution camera and the same glass material build. It may seem you're not getting a lot of improvements on the surface, but once we dive deeper, there are noticeable changes that separate this phone from its predecessor. So yes, the glass build seems pretty much the same, but I think Xiaomi made an effort to make the 13 Pro Plus stand out specifically for this Aurora Purple that I have. It's also in frosted finish, so that's a good bonus when it comes to keeping the back clean and smooth. Plus, Xiaomi has upgraded the IP certification to IP68, thus making this phone submersible in fresh water. There is a leather variant, but there's no word whether it'll arrive locally. The fingerprint scanner is now an in-display scanner, which is still an upgrade nonetheless. Although this is a bit controversial to some, the display is now curved to the sides, which is still an upgrade, technically speaking. Then you have the Dimensity 7200 Ultra chipset that offers significant upgrades over the Dimensity 1080. And if you're willing to go all out on this phone, the top model comes with 12GB of RAM and a half a terabyte of UFS 3.1 internal storage. That costs $23,999 here in the Philippines, but the base model with 8GB RAM and 256GB storage is only $20,999, which is actually 2,000 peso cheaper compared to last year's model. All in all, I'm impressed with the package offered by this phone as a whole. You're not sacrificing anything if you do plan to get this one. Most of the main features were kept while adding some small but quality upgrades here and there. As for the actual day-to-day use, is it better than last year's? Well, starting with the screen, yes, this is better. It's still the same 6.67 inches diagonal display with over 1 billion colors and Dolby Vision certification, but the resolution is slightly higher from 1080p to 1200p. The peak brightness is also higher as well, from 900 nits to a whopping 1800 nits. It's really hard to fault the display quality with those kind of numbers. As for that curved panel, it's up to your preference. I am used to curved edges and I prefer them over flat panels simply because it makes gesture easier to use, but if you should know, the palm rejection here is great. So even with one hand, this phone feels easier to use than other curved phones. What only separates this phone from more expensive ones, at least in terms of the build and display quality, are the bezels and the frame. The bezels are reasonably thin all around, but if I'm to nitpick, the chin is ever so slightly thicker than the top. Again, this is a nitpick, so it's not something you will immediately notice out of the box. As for the frame, I've used several curved phones in the past, but the 13 Pro Plus feels thicker in the hand. At 8.9mm, the thickness of this phone is noticeable to someone like me who reviews phones for a living. As far as performance goes, I have no problems with this phone. The Dimensity 7200 Ultra offers all the performance you need in a reliable main phone without having to deal with lags or stutters. I never noticed a single stutter, and even when I have 4K video playing in picture-in-picture mode while scrolling through different apps, this phone did not slow down or stutter a single bit. So general performance, you should be fine for the next, my guess is at least 3 years. This is running Android 13 out of the box with MIUI 14. No HyperOS yet, but I see hints of Xiaomi's new skin on the stock camera app. Xiaomi promised 3 major software updates and 4 years of security patches, so that's another bonus for its price. But as far as notification delivery goes, the timing has been consistent, no issues so far. I haven't been playing a lot lately on my phone, but I did fire up Honkai Star Rail, and in medium settings, this phone can game. I was probably getting around 30 to 40-ish FPS. I tried San Andreas via Netflix, but the game did not open due to compatibility issues, which is something MediaTek can improve on, just the software side of things since they already nailed the hardware. But just to be clear, this is not a gaming phone intended for gamers. If you want to game, you can opt for the Poco X6 Pro, which has way better gaming chops. Now, the charger of this phone is fast. 0 to 100% in under 20 minutes is ridiculous, especially for a 5000 mAh cell. That's a good advantage to have here because the Note 13 Pro Plus is just about okay when it comes to battery life. To give you some context, I have my video app set to 120Hz all the time. While being connected to Wi-Fi all day, streaming, scrolling, and mostly watching videos on Netflix, I was averaging only 5 to 6 hours of screen time. For my type of use, that's just enough juice for the entire day while needing to top up before bedtime. Maybe it's because of the more powerful chip, but that's how much battery I get from this phone, which is already the worst con if you can consider it a con. But as far as the camera goes, the quality you get is just about right for the price. The main 200 megapixel camera outputs sharp and detailed photos and videos. So long as there's plenty or decent lighting, it's hard to get a bad photo with these cameras. There are not a lot of changes in the way Xiaomi processes its photos and videos. Most of the time you're going to get natural looking shots, but other times things can get to HDR or saturated depending on the scenario. For example, for anything that's backlit or in harsh lighting, HDR can go overboard in shadows and highlights. Regardless of whether you have the night mode turned on or off, the colors will look saturated. Also, don't expect anything fast-moving subjects to be captured in perfect focus because the camera is a bit slow in that regard. But the most interesting bit I noticed is this 4x zoom, or the equivalent of a 93mm lens. While the 13 Pro Plus is not equipped with a zoom lens, the 4x zoom looks sharper and more detailed than the 2x zoom or 46mm crop. I was kinda expecting the same quality since all these zoomings are made digitally, but for some reason that 4x zoom outputs higher quality photos. As far as videos go, you can go up to 4K at 30 FPS with OIS in tow, and I must say that for anything related to handheld movements, the stabilization compensated very well. I'm seeing one of the best stabilized 4K videos handled using this phone. But unlike in photos, the more you zoom in on videos, the more you will lose quality. The only thing that left me disappointed is the tendency of the camera to produce grain and noise in the image during backlit scenarios. It's as if the camera doesn't know what to do or what to focus on. The dynamic range leaves room for improvement. That's a Redmi Note 13 Pro Plus for me. I do like the upgrades we're getting here. The curved screen may not be for all, but that's the reason why we have multiple models in a single lineup, because if you didn't like the Redmi Note 13 Pro Plus, there's the nonplus Redmi Note 13 Pro. And that one ditches the curved display and the MediaTek chipset at a much lower price too. Stick around next time to see that video very soon. But that's about it for this one. Drop a sub or like if you feel like supporting the channel, and as always, until the next one, stay safe.